So today we're going to lay out how humanity is progressing to become a better civilization that is post-scarcity, and one that helps bring out the full potential of every person on Earth. But not only that, I'm going to explain the most objective way to measure human progress. Its origin is science fiction, but there is incredible evidence indicating that humanity is becoming a Type 1 civilization, as in a species that can harness all the available energy on our planet. The best metric we can reference regarding human progress are energy and the factors that allow us to control more energy. But why use that as the basis for measuring human progress? For starters, energy powers work, which increases productivity, and that increases the growth of opportunity, ultimately leading to a state of flourishing. And by flourishing, I'm referring to a majority of a civilization having a proverbial floor above poverty and access to their necessary material and emotional needs. My name is Christian, and I am fascinated with the goal of becoming a Type 1 civilization, which would essentially mean having the ability to control and store all the energy available on Earth. I know it may sound unbelievable, but I have really good evidence indicating that this can be done. And to prove it, I've organized some mind-blowing indicators that show how humanity is progressing to the next level. It's no secret that renewable energy has been rapidly growing to become more efficient and cheaper than some fossil fuels. But just last year, nuclear fusion rose from the realm of impossibility, and we might have control of a miniature star this century. It's worth noting that this is different from the nuclear fission that occurs today in power plants, where atoms are divided. In this case, nuclear fusion fuses the atoms, and it's often regarded as a safer alternative. Some important things to keep in mind is fusing atoms produces 4 times as much energy as splitting atoms apart. It's also how our sun generates its own energy. Globally, 10% of all the energy consumed on Earth comes from nuclear fission. But if nuclear fusion ever makes its way out of the lab, we could essentially lower energy prices to zero and possibly end all global wars over energy resources. Needless to say, this innovation is still far away from becoming a reliable form of energy. But last year was the first time researchers were able to generate a larger output of energy than the energy they put in to power the nuclear fusion process. This could change everything on Earth, since it has the potential to generate 4 million times more energy than traditional energy resources like coal, gas, and oil, all without the significant environmental impact. There are still many challenges to work out before these fusion systems go live. But if we were to imagine all the potential energy available on Earth, fusion energy would likely take up a majority share of the pie. This new form of energy could drastically reduce the production and transportation costs of literally everything, since electrical energy is needed at all stages of the supply chain. As amazing as that is, this next sign of our progress indicates humanity's growing ability to manipulate our own atmosphere. To control all the energy on Earth, we would need to have some degree of influence over our atmospheric patterns, since the heat and moisture above play a critical role in weather systems and our energy grids on the ground. So, climate control, basically. For most of human history, we attributed the cause of floods, lightning, and droughts to a pantheon of different gods. But in today's modern world, we're grabbing Thor's hammer and whatever else sticks to control the divine. Some of our earliest efforts to manipulate the atmosphere can be tracked back to the US military when they used something called cloud seeding in the Vietnam War to manipulate the monsoon season and weaken infrastructure for a strategic advantage. Today, that technique is often used throughout the world to release moisture in clouds during a drought season. In the future, as solar energy becomes more common, it's also possible that countries could seed clouds specifically to ensure solar farms don't have clouds blocking the sun. That's just the tip of the iceberg though, since scientists recently invented a way to divert the direction of lightning strikes with a weather controlling super laser. The device uses 1 trillion watts of energy to create a digital lightning rod by using the laser to create a path of lower density air that conducts electricity. Or in other words, it creates the path of least resistance for the lightning to move in. This emerging technology is new, but it could be used to prevent billions of dollars in damages to the energy grid, airports, launch pads, and possibly batteries one day. On a broader scale, we've also inadvertently changed the chemical makeup of our atmosphere with industrial pollution and energy emissions, warming the atmosphere globally. So much so that the last 9 years on record have been the hottest years ever measured. The emissions warming the Earth, definitely not a great thing for humanity, but I am a glass half full kind of guy. And I view this as evidence that with enough coordination, research, and funding, we have the potential to improve our planet's atmosphere for the better. It's unfortunate that we need to learn how to control the climate after severely damaging it, but our human civilization is still young. So in a way, it makes sense that we would have to learn from our mistakes like a child. Despite continued growth in global energy demand, there are still many countries that experience rolling blackouts and energy scarcity. Since countries don't have equal access to energy resources, there has been a massive push since the 1800s to develop a global energy supply chain. The motivation? Likely for national self-interest, but a byproduct of providing energy to the rest of the world is that it grows economies quickly, which normally improves the standard of living. Granted, too much global economic growth can actually be a bad thing, and I've talked about that in other videos that you can check out right here. Systems to distribute energy globally are a necessary characteristic of a Type 1 civilization. So this makes it a very relevant metric to track if we're aiming for that goal. For most of human history, going to war and claiming more land was the best way to grow an economy. But promoting robust global energy trade has proven to grow economies even faster. Despite the renewable energy hype and improvements, oil is the most important and critical energy resource in the world. But only 3 countries produce 43% of all of it. Even though about 80% of energy comes from fossil fuels, only a few companies and countries monopolize those energy resources. They use their influence to artificially manipulate the cost of energy and often build infrastructure that specifically benefits them. For better or worse, the global energy trade has helped to promote travel, cultural exchange, and helped to further connect economies. But its centralized design has propped up oil-rich countries the most. If humanity is ever going to control all the available energy on Earth, we would necessarily need a way to distribute the energy to the areas that need it. Unfortunately, fossil fuels are finite and are causing an environmental crisis. So the upcoming challenge involves transitioning the global energy trade toward the necessary rare earth metals used for batteries and other renewable energy options. This could take the form of trading raw materials like we do today, but things like pipelines might be able to be converted to transport biofuels, or container ships might one day swap out barrels of oil for large reusable batteries. The global powers and dominant energy companies are resistant to this change. But whether this adaptation is forced by a collective demand for change or cost savings from renewable energy, there are a lot of signs that the global energy trade is expanding, diversifying, and becoming ever closer tied to human progress. Now, if we really want to progress humanity and control all the energy on Earth, ironically, we need to leave Earth and set up shop on the moon.
I don't quite get it.
We got into this mess by drilling here and here. Now, we need to drill here.
Here's the hard truth though. Earth is subject to rapid entropy, and if we continually increase our energy consumption over time, we will eventually run out of the resources needed to generate energy, replace parts, and maintain the systems that support the modern world. Thankfully, there is a solution. And as it turns out, investing in strategies to survive in places where we are biologically incompatible significantly increases our standard of living on Earth. On the high end, analyses indicate a $40 return for every $1 spent on space exploration, and that is evidenced by the fact that our society is overflowing with space products. Despite that, I've noticed a distinct trend that some people are completely against investing in this. Most likely due to a single prolific Twitter user and dildo rockets for wealthy people, but space exploration is the key to having a long-lasting civilization. That's partly why governments across the world are preparing to colonize the moon. The US, China, Russia, the EU, have all expressed explicit plans to build moon bases this century, and they're incorporating and hiring businesses across the world to help get it done. For instance, the car company Rolls-Royce is contracted to help develop a nuclear reactor for the moon, and a Jeff Bezos investment company recently reported the ability to create solar panels out of simulated moon dust. Many other companies have also committed to helping these agencies go to the moon. But this is because phase 1 of moon colonization requires a reliable energy infrastructure before the true benefits can come back to us on Earth. Phase 1 will involve laying the foundation by claiming land, setting up energy infrastructure that utilizes helium-3, and livable structures for a rotation of human visitors. Phase 2 will likely involve the deployment of 3D printed construction robots that will utilize a mix of moon and Earth resources to replicate themselves and expand infrastructure for launch pads, water filtration, and moon mining. Benefits from Phase 2 will have likely reached Earth by this point, but Phase 3 is where things start to get a little science fiction-y. The ultimate goal of Phase 3 is to utilize the moon as a launch pad so that we can retrieve the trillions of dollars worth of raw materials from asteroids, refine them on the moon, and transport them back to the Earth. Constructing a supply chain between Earth, the moon, and the endless materials within asteroid belts is likely the best way to ensure there are resources for future generations, and all signs indicate that a new space race is developing to expand opportunities. Before we part ways, I thought it worth mentioning that things like human rights, democracy, and happiness make for really good metrics too when discussing human progress. But if we can build a world where our energy needs are met at a low cost, it will amplify our ability to flourish, and it will help bring out the full potential of even more people. I know we can build a Type 1 civilization eventually, but it will depend on having a unified goal. So make sure to check out my other videos about how we could get that done. So if you made it to the end, thank you. That tells me that other people are also interested in this goal. So if you'd like to support me in my efforts, please subscribe and like the video so that others can see this video more easily.